Hello folks, I'm John Myrie and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show we have reports and tips for you from Ken Milender down at Hayward Bait and Bottle. And then we talk with our local DNR fisheries biologist Max Wolter about the Chippewa Flowage and the management plan. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
Save on your new Polaris snowmobile with a holiday sales event at Hayward Power Sports. Most remaining 2024 models offer rebates up to $2,000 or financing as low as 1.99% for 36 months, plus a 2-year promotional warranty. From relaxing two-up trail cruising to aggressive trail attacking, we have your machines. Meanwhile, the new 2025 Polaris Indy XCR features the new 9R Patriot engine for unbeatable response and acceleration. Get your new Polaris sled today at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in Northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray bake down draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom-cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period. Visit ampedoutdoors.com today to power your outdoor experience.
We're recording this week down at Hayward Bait and Bottle. Got Ken Milender in here again. Ken, we just keep making ice out there, seems like, with no snow.
A lot of lakes got, 12 inches on some of the bays right now.
What have you hearing down here at the shop? I mean, seeing a lot of people out ice fishing.
Yep, the quads are getting out towards the main lake. Some of the smaller lakes are going all the way across. Some of the big body of water, I would still use caution and check on their way out.
You hearing anything on the walleyes? That's usually early in the season thing, and once we get into sunboards in the mid-January, it starts to slow down. But are you hearing much out there as far as the walleye action?
The walleye action's still good. Due to the light penetration, they're still up on the reefs and where there's good weeds. If we have like 6 to 8 inches of snow, then they'll move out to the deep water basin. The crappies have moved out to the deep water basin already. They moved out on the dark moon a couple of weeks ago or so.
Well, that's typical of crappies. Bluegills tend to move out there a lot quicker, it seems like. And, there'll still be some along the edges, though, I think.
Yeah, it's all about their diet. So some panfish go after insect life, and then some of them are still on the little minnows and other insects that are still around the weeds.
As far as the panfish, what are you hearing as far as bait been working? Has it been the minnows of waxy, plastics, what?
You have to be versatile. Some days they won't take even a live bait, but if you're aggressive with a little spoon with a blade on it or something that gets a reaction bite has been working too.
Sometimes getting too aggressive, though, that's one of the big mistakes I see a lot of people make, whether it's in the summer or the winter, is that they tend to jig it up and down way too much and they try to make it look real. But a friend of mine from Minnesota over there, the guide's Bro Brosdahl, he made a comment. He says, just drop it in the hole, right in the water by your hole, and try to hold it still, and then kind of do whatever you're going to do as far as you're going to watch your bait. You can kind of tell what it's doing, and it's moving a lot more than you think it is down there.
Yeah, even the FL8s now, their technology has come a long way. Is you can kind of see how the fish are reacting to the bait due to the color on your screen, is whether or not they're right on your bait or on the edge, and gradually just move it up and then tease them a little bit. And there's times you'll come up 10, 15 feet off the bottom and they'll bite it then.
Yeah, you always want to try to be over the top of the fish. They almost never want to go down after it.
No, you gotta be above them. With an exception, sometimes whitefish, when you're in 55 to 60 feet, they will go down to about a foot off the bottom, but they won't go down into the muck or anywhere. But most of them will bite. coming up.
You mentioned whitefish. I mean, that's popular up on some of the big lakes, like Great Lake Superior and stuff. But we've got some lakes where we got whitefish too, inland lakes.
Yeah, Whitefish Lake actually has some 20 to 23 inches that can be caught.
In northern pike, I know there's always a lot of people going after pike, and we've got some unbelievably good pike fishing around here, and some pretty generous bag limits on some lakes. That's up to 10 on some lakes.
Yeah, low barometer, I would be up on top on the Cabbage where it's a little more sparse next to hard rock or harder bottom, and then during the day I'd be on the edge of the deep coontail, and some of the lakes that coontail goes to 24 feet.
Yeah, anything on dead bait yet, or has that strictly been shiners, sucker minnows?
Some guys are requesting it. We don't carry it here, but they're using dead sucker minnows, and they're using them with a dual treble hook rig. They're just hanging it under a tip up, and that's been productive too.
And you heard anything up on the big lakes? I know I'm seeing online that they're starting to get out on Chequamegon Bay, and they're doing some fishing up there.
Yep, they had a little bit of a scare when all that rain came in through the holidays, but I'd have to talk to a couple of guides to get refreshed up on the ice conditions, but they were getting out there with shelters.
I know you guys got just about everything in here, and there's a lot of new product out there this year for ice fishing, and we're sitting in one of the shelters right now, just nice and comfortable seating, and you can go out there, stay warm, and be comfortable and catch fish.
Yeah, with lack of snow, on your ice shelters, we have one set up here that's got the whole package. It's got the protection on the bottom, and it's got a hitch all ready to roll.
And, you got the electronics in here and just about anything you need for bait, whether it's live bait or artificials. And I know you guys are a great source of information here because everybody in the shop, it seems like, goes out fishing.
Yes, we do. We still have a couple live scopes for you guys that want to go out there and go catching instead of fishing. We have a couple of those available for the ice units.
I know that's incredible technology. I want to thank you, Ken, for taking the time with us here.
All right. Thank you, John.
Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll be talking to our local DNR fish biologist, Max Wolter. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hunters and anglers, Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop in Hayward. They have a huge selection of ice fishing gear, including portable shelters, power augers, electronics, beaver dam tip-ups, ice rods, and just about anything you'll need for ice fishing. They also have archery supplies, bows, crossbows, muzzle loaders, ammo, and much more to help you enjoy the outdoors. While you're there, check out the bottle shop for a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor, too. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
You wanna get outdoors, you wanna have some fun.
A new Can-Am side-by-side is the perfect companion for all seasons. Hayward Powersports still has an awesome selection of new 2024s, and they currently offer rebates up to $2,000 or 2.99% financing for 36 months. If you like the creature comforts, the very popular Can-Am Defender Limited HD10 offers a $1,500 rebate to go along with its full cab, including heat and AC. Looking for a value price machine? The Can-Am Defender XT HD7 features a winch, roof, front bumper, and full skid plate. With a $1,500 rebate, it's all yours for just $14,899. Maybe you need a little more muscle. Unleash the power of the Can-Am Defender XT HD9 or 10 with $1,500 rebates. With the money you save, you can outfit your new Can-Am with a plow, cab accessories, and so much more. Your new all-season companion is waiting at Hayward Powersports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Certain restrictions apply. Subject to credit approval. See your dealer for details.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on lodging and vacationing here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, one of the people I get on here quite often is our local DNR fisheries biologist, Max Wolter. Had a chance to visit him down at the office the other day and talk about the Chippewa Flowage management plan and a lot more. We're down at the DNR Ranger Station talking to our favorite biologist, our only biologist, Max Wolter. Good to have you on here again, Max.
Thanks for having me, John. Happy to be the favorite and only. That's a good position to be in.
You bet. Let's talk about the thing that you got. You've got an email and it's circulating around, and there's a link to the survey. There's a survey going out on the Chippewa Flowage as far as a new management thing.
Yeah, right. So especially for big, high-profile water in our areas, we develop management plans. And it's not like the most exciting thing to talk about. People rather hear about big muskies or whatever. But, if it's the new year right now, basically, when we're talking here, John. And if you set a goal for yourself, you got to have a plan to get there, right?
Yeah.
And our fisheries are no different, right? And so the management planning process, it is important. Like I said, it's not always the most exciting thing to talk about. But a huge part of it is getting angler input, right? I don't want to just sit here at my computer and just kind of come up with guesses about, I think people might like bluegill here, and they might like pike or whatever. This is what we want to do. I need to hear that from people, right? We need to get that direction from the anglers and the people that use the water bodies. So that's what this process is. Now, the Chippewa Flowage already has a fisheries management plan, but it's about 20 years old. A lot's changed in the last 20 years. I mean, you can come up with your own list of things that have changed in the fishing industry, right?
Yep.
Technology, whatever. We can come up with a list of things that have changed in how we manage the flowage, water level stuff, Eurasian milfoil, which is, kind of in the picture now, whatever. So it's a good time to do an update. It's a good time to check back in with people. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. So I have a survey that's going out. It's through SurveyMonkey, so it's an online survey. And there's a link that'll be going around. It's going to go through, the Lake Association. The resorts are going to be sending it out. I'll try to get it out through the Sawyer County Record. I'm sure it's going to show up on different social media sites. So when you see that, take it and give us your honest feedback about kind of how you want the fishery managed. And the types of questions you see in there, it's not like, here's 4 different regulation options for walleye, pick one. It's more about, kind of what you want, what you value. So, do you want to catch a bunch of walleye and you don't really care if they're smaller? Do you want to harvest more walleye or do catch and release? That's just one species, and then you go through all the others. So that's kind of what we're doing with this process and hoping for a lot of responses, because the more people you hear from, the better the plan's going to be.
Well, when you're talking the Chippewa Flowage, that's got to be an incredibly hard lake to develop a plan for, because it's not like it's one lake. It's like it's multiple lakes, and every lake, a part of that flowage is different from the other part.
Sure. Yep. That's a big part of it. You kind of have all those biological differences. And then also think about all the people and all the uses of the flowage, all the people that care about it, the tribal interest, the resort interest, the property owner's interest, the anglers that just come and visit and show up at a DNR boat landing and have a day trip out there, the folks that camp out on islands and spend, time there. You got all these different players, and you got a power company, right? Because it's an electrical generation reservoir. So it is very complex, and that kind of makes it even more important. The nice thing with this plan is we're only talking about the fishery, right? We're not talking about how we manage campsites and boat landings and all that. There's other professionals in DNR that work on that stuff, so I just kind of get to do the fish stuff.
When you're talking the fishery, I mean, walleye is one thing we could talk about here, and that's one of the main focuses on there a lot of times. There's a huge difference between the east side and the west side as far as the numbers of walleyes and the size structure of walleyes. That regulation for one side may not even be appropriate for the other side.
Absolutely. Huge challenge, right? And I've had people say that, well, why don't you have one regulation on this side of CC and one regulation on the other? And biologically, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, each side's got, thousands of acres. It's bigger than many of each side alone would be bigger than many of our individual lakes. But the challenge comes down to logistics and law enforcement, and when you have people passing back and forth, how do you say this size walleye is legal over here and this size walleye is legal over here, and wardens have to keep all that straight. We already have enough challenges with law enforcement on a big water body like that. So even though it would be great, we'll probably always have kind of one consistent regulation throughout the flowage, and it's just kind of about finding the best fit, something that's going to be okay for each side, even if it's not perfect and tailored, right?
Well, I hear a lot of guys complain over the years as, okay, we got a 15-inch size limit. That's wrong. It should be a 14-inch size limit. But in reality, whenever that fish gets to be the legal size, the chances of it being released are slim to none for the most part. So basically, it seems like it stacks up right at the minimum. It wouldn't matter whether it's 15 where it is now, or if it was 14, they would clip them off the top.
Right. Yeah. I would call that kind of moving the goalpost, right? You just move it. I've had people say even a half inch or a quarter inch, and it's like, well, okay, and that'll be fun for about a month, and then you kind of see where you're going to end up. Then the bottleneck or the fish you'll be catching will be just below whatever the new size limit is, because like you said, as they cross that size limit, their mortality, which would be the fisheries term, goes way up, right? They start getting harvested. So one thing we keep close eye on is growth rate. We want to make sure that the fish are at least capable of getting to that legal size limit and crossing it. If they were stacking up below the legal size limit simply because of slow growth, then we would absolutely want to change that. But if they're growing well, they're getting to 15 inches, and then they're just getting harvested, that points to the size limit actually having a pretty strong effect of protecting those younger fish. And people may catch a lot of sublegal fish, and it can be frustrating, but that's part of the size limit doing its job, and it's part of keeping the population abundance high too. But as a part of this planning process, one of the questions in there is, well, what sort of walleye fishery do you want? Do you want to harvest more fish, and then ultimately the population abundance will go down and you'll catch less on any given day of fishing? There's also some risks associated with that from a sustainability standpoint, but that is something we can do. But we have to force people to think about those trade-offs, right? It's not like you can just start harvesting 5 times as many walleye out of the lake and still have the same abundance or more walleye. The abundance is going to go down, right, John?
Right. Well, when you take regulations like, okay, one regulation I know is up on Moose Lake where we've got that only 1/14. We're definitely seeing the size structure improving on the walleye population out there. And that might be an applicable regulation on the east side of the flowage too, but maybe not on the west side.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's one we looked at. The Chippewa Flowage didn't have a size limit for a long time. But that's the type of thing, like, especially if we see growth slowing down. And the reason Moose Lake has that regulation is the walleye grow very slowly, right? So waiting for all the walleye to get to 15 inches was just not going to be a good approach. If the Chippewa Flowage were to continue to add big year classes of walleye and the growth slows down, that's the type of thing we'd be looking at is, well, okay, now we want to harvest some more of those highly abundant, slower growing small fish. We're not there yet, but it is something we're looking at almost annually. We're looking at how big are the year classes coming in. And if we start to see a few more really big ones, that's the type of change we'd be preparing for.
Wouldn't you, if you had one over a certain size, like on Moose 14 inches, and I know it's improved the size structure out there in the last few years, wouldn't that be improve the size structure on a lot of lakes, or is there an adverse thing to that?
It could, yeah. I mean, the adverse thing would just be if you took off the size limit on the Chippewa Flowage, harvest rate would go way, way up really fast. And so abundance would go from about 5 per acre, where it is now, down to, well, it's hard to say, but it would be cut down significantly. 5 per acre is a nice fishery. That's high catch rates. It certainly doesn't mean every fish is legal, but it's a nice, sustainable position to be in. Any change, obviously comes with those trade-offs where it's going to be less abundant. You're going to catch less fish on any given day of fishing. And then we run the risk that, maybe we get to a level where there aren't enough walleye to continue reproducing at a high rate too. So these are the things that keep me up at night.
How about the panfish? The Chippewa Flowage is a fantastic pan fishery. And the one thing we've seen, and I think we went to a 10-bag limit trying to correct that some, is that we've seen the size structure slipping down from the really big fish.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad we already talked about walleye, because there's a really strong link between panfish and walleye. When you have a really abundant walleye population, you typically get better size on panfish, because walleye are a good predator on panfish. They keep those numbers down. They allow panfish to grow well. And if you think about our area, right, and I know you're very familiar with all these lakes, name a great crappie lake that doesn't also have a really good walleye population.
No, there's no such thing. No,
right? It's really important. And when you lose that good walleye population, the crappie become really abundant and the size suffers, right? So if you want 12, 13, 14-inch crappies, it goes along with having a good walleye population, right? So on the Chippewa Flowage, going back to that, when the walleye were dipping around 2010, we saw panfish numbers really coming up. People were catching tons of crappies and bluegills. Now we're almost 15 years past that. We're seeing walleye abundance start to come back up. Panfish numbers are starting to come back down a little bit. That creates an opportunity for us to grow some bigger panfish, even if people aren't necessarily catching as many as they would have been 15 years ago. And that's where the 10-bag comes into the picture. And it was really well supported by anglers. It was actually proposed by anglers. But by moderating panfish harvest just a little bit it gives them an extra year or two to grow in the lake functionally. And so they may put on an extra half inch, 1 inch of growth. And so we can take a crappie population, for example, that maybe was dominated by a lot of like 8 3/4 and 9 inch fish, and we can get a bunch of them closer to 10. For bluegill, we're looking at, can you take a bunch of 7 1/4 inch bluegill and get them a little bit closer to 8 or over 8? And realistically, that's it, right? We're not talking about growing 14 inch crappies overnight. Maybe the population would continue to kind of shift toward that, but it's incremental changes when you're looking at kind of how an angling regulation typically functions.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine sponsors that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll have the second part of that talk we had with DNR biologist Max Wolter. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, come on over to Hayward Ace Hardware and check out the area's largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. We carry top brands like Browning and Sig Sauer, and we have a great selection of the newest and hard-to-find models. We've got a large selection of ammo with more coming in daily. If you need a scope, we carry great brands like Leupold, Hawk, and EOTech, and we'll even mount it and bore-sight it for you too. We even sell suppressors and silencers. And don't forget to check out our Guns of the Week. Huge discounts on a variety of pistols, rifles, and shotguns that change every week. So stop on in to Hayward Ace Hardware, your firearms superstore. Hayward Ace Hardware, Highway 63 North in Hayward, or give us a call at 715-634-8700.
Hayward Animal Hospital is a full-service medical and surgical hospital featuring on-site laboratory, digital and dental x-ray, in-house pharmacy, and online store. Dr. Ostrander has 40 years of experience dealing with illnesses, injuries, surgery, and dentistry. Hayward Animal Hospital offers urgent care appointments and emergency surgery daily. Please call early in the day for these appointments. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Hey folks, the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach on Highway K between the Big Lakes has groceries, ice, beer, liquor, and pop, and now has all new tackle and bait supplies. All current antiques and household items are now on sale and all must go to make room for the sport shop. That's at the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach between the Big Lakes.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment. Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler, as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com, and then just click on Area Guides.
Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, we're going to jump right back into the second part of that talk we had with Max Wolter. As far as angler harvest on the fish, how much of a factor is the people taking the bigger fish out?
Right.
How much of a factor is that?
Right, yeah. And so that's why the walleye are a really important predator, because walleye are willing to eat very, very small panfish that anglers aren't even catching or even considering yet. We're talking 2-inch crappies and 1.5-inch bluegills, right? So they're stopping year classes from being overabundant before they even have a chance to do it, right? Be like if you could pick all the dandelions in your yard when they're only an inch off the ground instead of having to wait until they're full grown, right? Anglers function very differently, right? We're not interested in 3 and 4 and 5-inch panfish. We want the biggest ones. And that's where we're kind of taking off the top end of the size structure, and that's fine. But if it's done at a really high rate, that top end is going to continue to kind of decline, right? So that's where a reduced bag limit forces people to release a few more fish, and those fish they're releasing get a little more time to grow in the lake, and that's how size structure ends up improving.
As far as anglers themselves, when it comes to crappies or bluegills, is there a size that you say that people should probably be thinking about putting back instead of harvesting on either one of the species?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on people's motivations, but, if as a whole angling population, if we all kind of adopted the same mindset of, yeah, I'm gonna release the 9-inch bluegills I catch, that's how you can grow more 10 and 11-inch bluegills, because they need that extra time to grow. And if they're all getting harvested at 8 and 9 inches, most of them aren't going to get to 10. And then with crappie, it's kind of the same story. If you have a high abundance of crappie that are 8.5, 9, 9.5 inches, those are great ones to harvest. Take from those most abundant sizes that you're catching, even if they're not the most appealing. change that mentality of, well, I'm going to high grade, which would be the term we use, and I'm only going to take, the 11s and 10.5s and 10 3/4. Certainly understand there's a little more meat on those, but, that, again, kind of keeps that population size structure depressed a little bit.
And the growth rate, it takes a lot of years to grow bigger panfish, and the chances of them surviving that many years in the lakes is pretty high not to get that big.
Right, yes, and this is something we always try to put out every I feel like every couple of years or few episodes or whatever, is an 8-inch bluegill is an 8-year-old fish, maybe more in some lakes, right? So there's not it's not something you can just replace overnight with a fish that was born 2 years ago. It takes a lot of time for them to get to those bigger sizes, and the growth only slows as they get bigger. So the amount of time it takes for them to get from 0 to 8 inches may actually be about the same amount of time as it takes for them to get from 8 to 10 or 11 inches. So those last couple inches that make it a really special fish, it takes a long time.
How about northern pike and muskie on the flowage?
Yeah. So pike has been one that we've put a lot of attention into because it's not a native species. And we see a lot of potential issues with having a really abundant, fifth predator, I guess, if we consider both of the native bass species. So, our goal for the flowage from the existing fisheries management plan is we don't really want tons of them out there. And the ones we want to have out there should be a little bit better size, right? If you're going to catch a pike, make it a mid or upper 20s inch pike or a 30-inch pike. People get excited about that. They don't get as excited when it's a bunch of hammer handles or snakes or whatever. When all the pike are 16 to 21 inches, catching lots of them. And then, of course, from a biologist standpoint, you see all those small pike competing for space, competing for food, competing for spawning areas, whatever, with other species like muskies. So we've tried to get more harvest of pike out there. We've had a really well-organized effort by the Lake Resort Association out there. I think it's helped, and I think a lot of people have kind of been turned on to harvesting pike. But with a big lake like that, we still have a ways to go. There's still a lot of pike out there in that flowage. And then, of course, I think the species that suffers the most, so to speak, is muskies, right? They're very closely related. Same spawning habitat, same food, all that, and we're trying to manage that as a muskie population, basically. We want it to be kind of the high-quality muskie fishery that people expect. So,
it seemed to have improved over the last few years out there as far as numbers and size on those.
I hope so. I mean, it's tough. Doing muskie surveys is harder than almost any other type of survey because they're just more difficult to catch, even for us. So we do rely on, what anglers are seeing and saying, and even looking at, kind of resort big catch charts and stuff. We've been stocking fairly aggressively. We've been doing things to try to promote natural reproduction. And between those two things, we want to see a fair number of new muskies coming into the system each year. And then, of course, the pike, keeping pike abundance low is a part of that too. So that's kind of what we're working on with muskies. But, part of the reason we put this survey out is letting people, just having people tell us, we want you putting a lot of time and energy into this species or that species. And then we'll kind of take our cues from that.
And the other species of fish out there is bass, and that seems to have gone down some over the years.
Yeah, and that's been across a lot of the lakes. In fact, we were just talking about this, me and Scott Braden, our fisheries technician, that around the time we started, bass were kind of at maybe all-time highs for a lot of these lakes, around 2012, roughly. Especially largemouth bass were really peaking. And we have seen that abundance come down, and as that abundance has come down, the size has gotten a little bit better. So that's kind of more the status we'd like to stay in for a lot of our bass lakes, especially if it's a lake that we're also managing for walleye. And on the Chippewa Flowage, we've absolutely seen that largemouth abundance has come down. Smallmouth are holding pretty steady, especially on the east side. So yeah, bass have been in a better place, I would say.
Max, a lot of great information there. I want to thank you for taking the time here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and folks should look for that survey. We'll be pushing it out a bunch of different ways. Like I said, social media, email, stuff like that. I'll try to run something about it in the newspaper, but If you're not seeing it anywhere, just get in touch with me by email and I'll send you the link. No problem.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at WNOradio.com. And from there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications.